Yeah, welcome everyone to the third lecture of this algebraic number theory series. Today, Akash will be presenting. This series is conducted by both Akash and Srijan Das. And in the last couple of lectures, we covered a few things, which the videos of which are uploaded in YouTube. You can look it up. And today, Akash, are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's start. If anyone has any
Yeah.
doubt,
Okay. Yeah.
you can just unmute in the middle of the talk and ask the speaker. And good. I'll mute myself. Start.
Yeah. So yesterday's region proved about like how ideals factorize in a Dedekind domain, but Dedekind domains are usually not UFD. So one examples are like z root over -5. So actually, to prove like they are not UFD, it is exactly same thing. For a Dedekind domain, a PID is actually implies that it will be a UFD. It is an if and only if statement. So we'll see something like it is not a PID, a Dedekind domain, but it is very close to a Dedekind PID. And Dedekind domain means like, so suppose I'm taking a non-zero ideal I in a Dedekind domain. So then it says there is a theorem which says that I can be always generated by two elements. So as it is not a PID, we might not generate by one element, but we can always generate by two elements. There are two elements. So that's the property of Dedekind domain. And yeah, again the same thing, we know that every PID is UFD, but of course every UFD is not a PID like ZX, where the ideal is 2 comma x is not a principal ideal. But yeah, the converse is valid for the Dedekind domain. As I said, like for Dedekind domain, actually if you have PID, it means of course it is UFD, but also if you have if it is a UFD, then it implies that it will be a PID. So yeah, in the next yeah. So again, like K and L are number fields with the inclusion, and let R and S are the numberings for K and L. And the term prime, so basically like non-zero prime ideal. By prime we means non-zero prime ideal, so not zero. So P is a prime of R and Q is a prime of S. Then this following are equivalent. Q divides PS means obviously Q will contain PS. Then Q will contain P, then that means Q intersection R is P, and then of course Q intersection K is also P. So these are the equivalent condition of what do you mean by in an extension, say K and L. What do you mean by the prime elements? So again, like as Srijan said yesterday, like if you have in a Dedekind domain, if you have a P, then it always splits. It always factorizes into primes. Now, so if you have, let's just say like your K is rational Q and your L is some extension. So basically what you want to do, you want to show, see like how this primes splits in a new extension. Like if you take for example like Z and Zi, what happens in Zi? In Zi, say 2 is prime in Z, but when you go to Zi, it actually splits into two things, 1 plus I, 1 minus I. Similarly, every 4k plus 1 forms prime will split into two factor, but 4k plus 3 forms primes stays prime. So that's what we will more or less see today, how prime splits and what are like, what will be the power of them and everything. So when this following, like this equivalent statements happen, we say that, okay, P lies over Q. Okay. So next, yeah. So KQ is a number field, OK is the numbering of the field. So we know that of course OK is a Dedekind domain from the previous talk. And so you can factorize this OK's ideals. Now let P be a prime. So now for like whatever the notion was K and L, we will basically see for K is equal to Q. You can always do for like any K and L over Q. The whole thing is this whole whatever I'm doing, it will be still true for like K and L, but I'm going to do more or less for just Q, and then you have some finite extension L. So let P be a prime in Z. In OK, P splits uniquely as a factorization as we saw yesterday. So whatever this Ni, this power of Ni's, so if you take any P, it splits somehow. So say P1 to the power N1 to Pk to the power Nk. This Ni's you call the ramification index of Pi comma P, or just you write like E of whatever it is written. So this is called the ramification index. And so of course, and if q is a prime which doesn't appear in the factorization of p, also it means that if you take like q intersection with z, that is not p. So then you just say that ramification index for q comma p is then 0, usual thing. Yeah, now if you see, let's say you have picked a prime in z, say p, and then I know that there will be some factorization of p in the new ring. Okay, so let's say q is another prime in OK, which actually lies over p. So then if you see it, like of course then you have a natural vector space structure over OK by q over z mod pz. So it is just basically a z mod pz vector space. And now, as we have seen previously, that OK has over Z, OK has finite rank. It is rank n. So of course, when you think about it is a vector space of Z mod P over Z mod P, then you know that it, of course, the vector space dimension is of course going to be finite. So this degree of the extension, so Z mod P, then OK mod Q, whatever this degree is, we call this to be the inertia degree. And of course, you can see this inertia degree will be always less than or equal to n, where n means the degree of the extension L, which contains Q. Similar thing, yeah. So this is the most important theorem for today's lecture. This theorem, which is called the ramification formula, something like that. So first of all, let's just take a P in Z. So we have our P in Z. Then we see how it factorizes inside your OK. So suppose P is like Q1, E1, Qn, En. So yeah, there is a I mean it should be like Q1 to QR. It shouldn't be like always N, but anyway. So it should be Q1, E1 to QR, ER. And as you have seen, like this F we define by the inertia degree. Then suppose this is F QI comma P is Fi and E QI comma P is EI. Then you will always have summation EI Fi equal to N. So n is your just degree of the extension. Like you take k and k over q, the extension is just degree of the extension is n. So now one thing I want to say that, so from this you can actually like guess like how the prime actually factors. So suppose you are taking some quadratic extension, any quadratic extension you take. So you can already say that if you take a prime p in z, in that quadratic extension, this prime can't factor into more than two factors. If it factors into more than three factors, let's say we are in Zi and we take the prime, say 3 or 5, whatever, then you can see that if it factored into more than two factors, then this summation EIFI would be definitely greater than or equal to 3. But the degree of the extension is 2. So you can already see that if you take like in the quadratic extension, so if you take any quadratic extension and you take a prime, so how that prime can split? Number one, it can stay prime, like how any 4k plus 3 forms prime, like stays prime in Zi. Two, it can factor into one prime, but like it is p square. So p will be like some q square. Or two, it will factor into two different primes. These are the only possibilities for any quadratic field. So yeah, next. Yeah. So now there is a notion called ideal of norm of an ideal. Like we have seen previously, like what is an the definition of norm of an element. So this actually generalizes the notion of norm of an element, because like in this new definition we will see that I can always take an alpha in OK and I can consider it to be an principal ideal. So you will see that norm of ideal in this sense and the norm we defined earlier, these two are same. So an ideal, norm of an ideal is defined to be OK mod I, just norm this index of this OK mod I. And this is finite because like this is basically like kind of a sketch of the proof, like how you can say that why it is finite, like why is the norm is even defined. So as it is a Dedekind domain, you take I, you can always factor it, and then say suppose it is I is equal to p1 e1 to pr er, then you apply the Chinese remainder theorem, then you can see this your OK mod I actually splits as direct sum of OK mod pi to the power ei, direct sum of that. Then you have to just prove that if it is already just pi power ei is just 1, then it is a field and you are more or less done. Now you have to prove that for OK mod pi, it is some power of pi to the power k. So altogether this thing is finite. So this is just to prove that like this actually well defined. A norm is multiplicative, like in the previous sense. Norm is here is also multiplicative. Like if you have I into j, that means norm of I into j is just norm of I and norm of j. And as I said earlier, that if I is the principal ideal, say generated by some alpha, then I, as I defined what the notion of these two norms, like norm of q over k alpha and then norm of I, these two things are just same. So this just generalizes the previous notion of norm. Yeah. So now I don't think I have said this earlier, so I'm going to say this now that that if you have your alpha into OK and you know that your norm of alpha is in Z, that you have shown that it is an algebraic integer and it is also in a rational, so it must be in Z. So norm is always in Z. But you can also say something more, that actually the norm of alpha will be inside the ideal generated by alpha. So how you can show that? You take norm of alpha, that is just product of like this all this embeddings of k, so sigma of alpha, that is just, and in this all embedding there is the identity embedding. So that identity embedding you take one side and you take the rest to the other side. So then you can say that your norm of alpha is just alpha into beta. Now there is the thing that alpha into beta, but we don't know that beta is inside OK. So you can't just say like that, okay, is alpha into beta, and of course it is inside alpha. You have to show that, okay, beta is also is inside OK. But that's also obvious, because if you see, if you take the other embeddings, so beta is what? Beta is product of sigma alpha, where this sigma is everything except the identity. So now if you apply all the Galois embeddings of the Galois automorphism, so there are these automorphisms which actually is in the product, which is non-identity. So that of course fixes the thing. So because that just permutes the order of this product, so there's still going to be beta. And if you apply identity of beta is just identity. So it is fixed by every Galois automorphism. So you can say that, okay, beta is going to be in OK. So that's how you can say that norm of alpha will be inside alpha, the ideal alpha. So why am I saying this? Because when you see the generalized notion, so if you like see in the generalized setup, if your I is like some product of prime, say q1 power e1 to qr power er, then you can have like q actually lies over some prime in z. You take that it is multiplicative. So your I will be just nothing but product of this primes norm. And then you can see that it actually factors through this like PIs, something like that. Okay. Yeah. So one thing, so if you see now, the norm of I is some P1, K1, dot, PRKR, right? Now, which primes are here for the, if I take any ideal and if I see the norm, it will have some prime factorization. But if you just see compare I's prime factorization in OK, you can see that this prime, the norm of I, so it is product of some P. This P, the P's which are here for the factorization, it will only come from the factorization in terms of ideals in the DDK, in the OK. So that's it. So the next. Yeah. So if you can now see that if I norm of I is prime in Z, then obviously I is prime in OK. If it is not prime, you will have some prime factorization. Then norm is multiplicative, so that will contradict your assumption that norm of I is prime. So, but this is the important part. Like, if you have a P inside your prime in OK, spec of OK means just the prime set of prime ideals of OK. So if P is a prime ideal in OK, then if you take the norm of P, so norm of P will be some power of prime, because norm of P is what? Norm of P is again the same thing like this dimension of the vector space over Z mod P, because norm of P is just OK mod P, that's index, and that is just some vector space over ZP, which is a finite dimension, so it will be some power of P. But the main point is that norm of p can be any power of p, but the power of p, like say p to the power k, so that k will be less than or equal to n. This is it. Okay, so now we'll see some application of the ramification formula, and this will show that like you don't have to like work everything out. You just can apply this formula a bit cleverly, and you'll see a lot of results from it. So let us take like z of omega. Then so as we have done earlier, that you can see that you take 1 minus omega, and then this phi of omega of x is just the cyclotomic polynomial, say 1 plus x to the power p minus 1, and you just put 1 inside this, then you will show that because the cyclotomic polynomials, the roots of the polynomial is just omega I. So you have phi of omega 1 is equal to p is equal to product of 1 minus omega phi. So now you can see that p is actually contained inside 1 minus omega whole to the power p minus 1, because in every this 1 minus omega I, you can apply that formula 1 minus x to the power I is 1 minus x into something. So you can see from this, if you factorize the right hand side, then you can see that okay, your p is contained inside 1 minus I, 1 minus omega whole to the power p minus 1. But now if you think about it, you know 1 minus omega is a prime ideal in OK, because our OK is just z omega. If you quotient 1 minus omega, you will get z. So our 1 minus omega is a prime ideal. Now I know that p is actually contained inside 1 minus omega to the power p minus 1. So if I factorize my p in z omega, I know that okay, 1 minus omega is there. In general, 1 minus omega to the power p minus 1 is there. But if there is more than that, like if some qi's are there, then I can apply the ramification formula, because I have already 1 minus omega for from 1 minus omega, I already have p minus 1. And the degree of the extension is p minus 1. So I know that there can't be any qi's. That is number one. So there is no qi. So p is some 1 minus omega to the power k. And I have seen that okay, already 1 minus omega whole to the power p minus 1 comes. So whatever the k is has to be greater than or equal to p minus 1. But k, the degree of the extension is p minus 1. So k is also less than or equal to p minus 1. So k has to be p minus 1. So you can see that that's how you can see that p actually factors into 1 minus omega whole to the power p minus 1. So in general, for any cyclotomic extension, you can also see that 1 minus omega whole to the power n is p, where n is just phi of m. M is just the cyclotomic like extension of degree m. Okay, so next, yeah. Okay, so this is another example. So let us see that if our you take some alpha which satisfies this equation, alpha cube is equal to alpha plus 1, and then you have the extension is q of alpha. So just assume that you know what is your OK is. You know that if you assume your OK is Z alpha, then we'll proceed. So we will show that actually if you take the prime 23, then it actually splits like 23 comma alpha minus 10 whole square and 23 comma alpha minus 3. So one thing is that you can just easily like you can calculate the whole thing, and then you show that okay, 23 is contained inside this right hand side, the right hand side is contained in the left hand side, and so on. Other than that, you can apply the ramification formula. So what are you going to do? We're going to do first, we're going to calculate that 23 is inside the right hand side. So the prime 23 will be inside the product of these two prime ideals, that you can check. So if that happens, so as we see in the like factorization of primes in Z, here you can also guess like 23 comma alpha minus 10. This is a prime ideal, because if you see my OK is just Z alpha. So if I quotient by 23 comma alpha minus 10, so then it is what? If I quotient it by this, then I will get Z mod 23Z, which is a integral domain. So you will see that your 23 comma alpha minus 10 is a prime ideal. Similarly, 23 comma alpha minus 3, that is also a prime ideal. So you have already that 23 is contained inside q1 square and q2. So if you now apply the prime factorization property, then you can already see that if you like now split the whole thing, whatever appears in 23's factorization, then you can show that it will be something like q1 power k1, q2 power k2, and some primes. But now if you see that for 23 comma alpha minus 10, it contributes 2. The ramification index is 2. I don't know the inertia degree, but I don't want to like know what is the inertia degree. I'll just see from here. So if I now calculate the summation EIFI, so I at least have for 23 comma alpha minus 10, from there it comes to F, to F1. From the next factor, I have the ramification index is 1. So if I assume that my inertia degree is F2, then I will have 2 F1 plus F2, and there are some other prime factor that might appear in the factorization of 23. So all this summation, if I take now all this summation, then I can say that okay, the whole thing is 3, because the degree of the extension is 3. It is a cubic extension. But now if you see, like neither F1 or F2, like the inertia degrees are not 0. So I already have 2 F1 and I already have F2. So it must be like these are the only primes appearing in the factorization of 23. Not only that, from here you can also see that the inertia degree for both 23 minus 23 comma alpha minus 10 and 23 comma alpha minus 3, for both of these cases you see that the inertia degree is just going to be 1. So yeah, that is the thing. Like, so you don't have to like check the whole thing every time. You just get some factorization, then apply the ramification formula to get like what is the whole picture happening here. So yeah, again, there is another example. It is again a cubic extension, and so we can show that like theta of k, sorry, O of k is z of 2 2 to the power 1 by 3. Let us say alpha is 2 to the power 1 by 3. Then we have that alpha cube is equal to 2. Now if you think about it, if you quotient like your OK is Z alpha, if you quotient by alpha, it is Z. So sorry, not it won't be Z, it will be Z mod 2. If you quotient Z alpha by alpha, it will be Z mod 2, because inside alpha, so alpha cube is 2. So inside alpha there is 2. So you are at least first you are getting rid of alpha, so it is Z, and then you are still quotienting by 2, so it will be at least Z mod 2. So you can say that okay, my alpha is a prime ideal. So now as I know that alpha cube is equal to 2, so again the degree of the extension is 3. So if you apply alpha cube, which is going to be of course 2. So one thing is, now just I want to say one thing, that from all of these examples, one can see, so first take say Zi. In Zi you take a prime 2. Then 2 actually splits as 1 plus I into 1 minus I. Then there you have say 2 factors. Then you take the next example. In the next example, you see 23 is equal to 23 comma alpha minus 10 whole square, and then 23 comma alpha minus 3. Then you come to the next example. Here you see there is only one prime appearing in the whole scenario. So there is kind of like, you can't really say for a prime, like splitting of primes, you can't really say in general what can happen. I mean, it might be it might be like still prime, it might factor into only one prime, it might factor into different prime. If it factors into different prime, maybe their ramification index will be different. So there are a lot of like a lot of like different things are going in. But we will see that if your extension, if you start with some extension, and if your extension is Galois, then at least you can say that you will have something to say about this degree, ramification index, and so on. So if you look at the extension, say Zi, so Qi is the extension over Q. So you know that Qi over Q is Galois. So over Qi, you can see that your prime, say 2, it factors into distinct prime, and both for these two distinct prime, you will see that the ramification index are always same. So this is the case for Galois extension. Like if you have Q and Q bar are two primes, say lying over P, then there is an automorphism in the Galois group, say Galois K mod Q, such that the sigma of Q will be Q bar. So it actually permutes everything. If you think about any Galois extension, so you can always say that okay, it permutes the if you take like say P, and if you have your factorization say Q1 power E1 blah blah blah, then you can always say that okay, there is some sigma which takes Q1 to any Qi. Now, as an easy corollary, you will see that over P a prime, and then you take a Galois extension, then you can say that okay, uh, over this Galois extension, you can always say that E over QP, and if this Q dash is any other prime, then you can say that the ramification index is going to be same. How are you going to do that? So let us just see that factor P. So suppose P is equal to Q1 E1 to QR ER. Now what you can do, you just apply sigma. So one thing you have to see that actually sigma takes a prime ideal into a prime ideal. Like that's very easy to see because sigma doesn't change OK. Sigma takes OK to OK, and then you have like when you quotient by OK mod sigma of P, where P is a prime, then it is same thing. You have a natural isomorphism from OK mod sigma P to OK mod P, and both of them are integral domains. So sigma always takes prime ideal to prime ideal. So now if you take P and if you take product of primes, which actually appears in the factorization of P, then apply sigma, then you have sigma of P. So P is in Z. So sigma actually doesn't change anything from Z. So sigma of P is still P. Now this when you apply sigma to the right hand side, say the into the factorization of Qi's, then it just permutes all the Qi's. So if it permutes all the Qi's, that means what? If you have then you if you take any EI and if, EJ, then you must have that sigma of Qi goes to Qj. You apply sigma inverse to that, then you can say okay, your EI and EJ is going to be the same thing. So every ramification index, when you apply this Galois automorphism, then you can say that okay, your E's will be the same. And
Uh,
similarly, why the
one
X are,
one second.
yeah,
You have to
yeah,
also prove that there is only a single orbit, right? Like if you factor a prime into say prime factors in your extension, then it can so
yeah.
happen that like there can be suppose there are five primes and there can be like three things going among each other and two things going among each other.
Yeah, of course, yeah. That is something. It's a bit like now you have to say those kind like the orbit, whatever Vignesh is saying. That is actually true. Like if I have say some Q1 and some Q2, that might can go to the maybe the same thing or not. So yeah, this is like it is a bit tricky to actually show those things to actually like if I have a Qi and a Qj, that might not go to the same thing. So we'll assume here that actually sigma just permutes in the sense that it like, keeps the track of the orbits. So from there you can see okay, your EIs and EJ will be the always same. So one thing, yes, yeah. So as I have seen, we have seen that this ramification index is same. This will actually imply that your like this in a similar fashion. Like if you have say, or if you take a QI and if you take a QJ, and you take the ramification index for Qi, say it is Fi, and you take the ramification index for Qj, say it is Fj. So you have to show that Fi is equal to Fj. So how are you going to show that? So if you have OK mod Qi, then you can give sigma, you can apply a sigma onto the top and the bottom, then you can see that sigma is an isomorphism. So sigma is an isomorphism between OK mod Qi to OK mod sigma of Qi. So now you can see as sigma is transitive, sigma takes any Qi to any Qj. Therefore, you can say if you take any Qi and Qj, you can say see that OK mod Qi will be isomorphic to OK mod Qj. Therefore, you can see that okay, this Fi's are same, these EI's are same. So if you apply into the ramification formula, it will give you what? EI Fi is equal to N. Now your EIs are same, your FIs are same, and suppose there are R factors in the prime decomposition of P. Say there are Q1 to the power E to QR to the power E. Then you can say R into E into F is equal to N. Now the whole point is to like, why am I saying this ramification index is same or not? Because it's more or less this kind of thing will have, like, you don't have any algorithm to actually like check for any. If you give me any say any extension of any degree, let's say like say degree any extension of degree 7 or something like that, it will be very hard to actually just check, like, just if you compute and everything, like, you won't get much. So what you do is basically, if you have like some bad looking extension, what you can do is, first you take the prime. So your extension might not be Galois. So what you do, you just take the Galois closure. In the Galois closure, you try to see what is happening. Then you come back and see like if whatever you are guessing is happening or not. So basically, you have to start with a guess, like how we did like with the factorization of 23. Like first you will have a guess that okay, I'll choose two prime ideals, say P and Q, and then I'll try to show that okay, pi to the power pi to the power ki, if that contains p or not. If that contains p, then you start applying this ramification formula, and then you just exclude like some of the possibilities, and then you achieve like, okay, this is the desired factorization. So yeah, the next, yeah. So this is the notion of like when I say a prime is ramified or not. So if you have a prime in Z, we call this prime to be ramified if you see the ramification index is greater than or equal to 1. Oh, I think it should be greater than 1. Yeah. So if you have a prime in P, and if you see that, okay, if it is the ramification index is greater than 1 for some prime Q in OK lying over P, then you say that, okay, your P is ramified. So, which means that basically it is like the square phi notion. If you see in like when you are talking over Z, when you say something is square phi or not, it is basically like that. If there is something, some prime is there such that P of Q P, which is it should be strictly greater than 1. Again, Srijan?
It should be strictly greater than.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, so there is a printing like, yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a typo. It is saying that greater than or equal, but it should be strictly greater than 1. So if so, suppose you have first take like start, you have started with P, any P in Z. So then you go over OK. So in OK you see that there are lots of primes, and you see the prime factorization of P. If you see that okay, there is some prime which actually the power of the prime in the factorization is greater than 1, say 2, 3 or whatever, then you say that P is ramified over P is a ramified prime. So this
Yeah.
thing, this next theorem shows
One
that,
doubt. If I
yeah,
take 2
yeah,
over qi, basic in zi,
yeah,
so
it is not ramified.
okay, so you want strictly greater than 1. That's what you said.
Yeah, it is strictly greater than 1. So it is basically like the square. If
Square free notion.
ramified means that it is not square free. Yeah.
Okay,
So just
fine.
like, yeah. So another thing is like there is a big theorem. Actually, this theorem is very difficult to prove, that P is ramified if and only if P divides the discriminant of OK. So, and from here actually, so first what you do, you take the calculate the discriminant of OK. So of course, uh, discriminant of OK is inside Z. So Z, if you like factorization, if you factorize an integer in Z, there are only finitely many prime factorization, finitely many prime factors. So of course you can say that there are only finitely many primes in Z, which will be ramified in OK. So that's one result. Yeah. So this actually tells you that what can happen when you are over like a quadratic extension. As I said, for a quadratic extension, so what can be the possibility? Let us say that again. So for quadratic extension, we have the degree of the extension is 2. So if I apply summation EIFI, summation EIFI should be 2. So like how many possibilities do I have? First of all, so you can say that EIs and FIs, they are non-zero integers. So they are at least greater than or equal to 1. So from the beginning, we can see that a prime doesn't split into more than 2 factors into a quadratic extension. And second, you can check that. Second, like you can check them. The possibilities are, there are 3 possibilities for a prime to like how it splits. So one thing is like it will stay a prime, which happens like for say 4k plus 3 in zi, it stays a prime. It can split into two different primes. So when it splits actually into two different primes, then what can you say? Your EI must be 1 and your FI also must be 1. So both the EI, like ramification degree, ramification index and the inertia degree will be 1. And in that case, you will see that your P is not ramified. Your P is not square free. Sorry, your P is square free. So this theorem actually tells like how the whole thing happens in any Q of Q root M. So here, I mean, of course, when we are talking about Q root M, my M is a square free integer. So suppose first P divides M. So if P divides M, then I can say that this P splits as P comma root over M whole square. This is one. Now suppose M is odd. So when M is odd, for M is odd, we will basically see like how two factors inside M as a Q root M. So first of all, if M is 3 mod 4, then it is square of 2 comma 1 plus root M whole square. Secondly, if M is 1 mod 8, then it is 2 comma 1 plus root M by 2 into 2 into 2 comma 1 minus root M by 2. If M is 8 mod 5 mod 8, then 2 will stay prime. Now the next thing is when P is if P is odd, so basically first we have seen the when P is 2 how it splits. Now if P is odd, we will see what happens. So if P is odd and P doesn't divide M, then we will have P splits as P comma n plus root M and P comma n minus root M. If M is n square mod P and it stays prime, is M is not a square mod P. So that's the whole classification of how any prime actually splits into a extension degree of 2. So why is this important? Because basically in the next to like the next lecture, mainly we'll see that how to actually calculate the class number. So why is class number important? So as we have seen that a Dedekind domain is a PID if and only if it is UFD. So basically someone might ask you, they will give you some number and they will ask you, okay, try to show that whether it is UFD or not. So you can't check really like directly. It is very difficult to check whether it is UFD or not. So what will you do? You will show first that its class number is 0. Because if the class number is 0, then you can show that it is PID, then of course it means UFD. But how do you show if something's class number is 0? So there is a formula called Minkowski's formula, which actually helps you to give like
Akash,
it will give
Akash.
you a bound. Yeah.
The class number should be 1, I think.
Yeah, sorry, class number, of course, class number is 1. I mean what I sorry, I by 0 I meant like there is only one element, which is the 0, the identity element. So yeah, the class number is 1 that you have to show. So how you can show that? So they will see that there is a formula which will give you a bound. So from that bound, what will you see? You will try to see that. Then that bound will actually tell you the only primes you have to worry about, the splitting of the prime. The only primes you have to worry about, those primes which are smaller than the bound you have calculated. So for those primes which are smaller than the bound, now we basically will check for this. We'll calculate the class number for say quadratic extension, more or less. We'll do for quadratic extension, because other than quadratic extension, it will be very difficult to calculate. So then you will see this for if P is less than the bound and you know the how P splits. So you say your bound is say 3. In Q root M, your bound is 3. Then the only prime you have to worry about is say 2. Now you go for 2 and you say how 2 factors. So you will check there are only 3 possibilities. So first, second, then you try to show that where these 3 prime ideals, so like 2 comma 1 plus root over M whole square, whether this prime ideal is a principal ideal or not. So if in each case you can see if every prime factorization, every factor which appears in the prime factorization, if you can see, okay, these are the prime principal ideals, then you can prove that, okay, your OK is a PID. Hence it will be a UFD, and over UFD you can solve this Fermat's last theorem and everything. So that's a very interesting topic for the next lecture.
Akash,
So yeah, I think yeah.
can you tell the outline of the proof of this theorem? How do you prove
This
this?
is yeah. For yeah. So basically, as I said, you start with this three possibilities. You start with the three possibilities. So what you do, as so you have your q root m. So what you can do, you can calculate the discriminant for q root m in every case. You can calculate the discriminant of a quadratic extension. There is a formula for that, whether m is 4k plus 1 or not, whether m is 4k plus 3 or not, whether it is 8k plus 1 or something like that. You will get a formula like that. So when you take p, so your first calculation will be to calculate the discriminant. Now you try to see that the prime you are working with, whether it divides the discriminant or not. Suppose if p divides the discriminant, if p divides the discriminant, then you know, okay, it must be a square. So then you have like, okay, I'm working with root over m, and if I say, if I take like a prime, I first you will guess some prime. Okay, you will just guess some prime is there. Then you can actually show that, okay, if p divides the discriminant, then you know, okay, this prime must be of power of 2. So if q contains your p, and you already know p divides the discriminant, then you must have p is equal to q square. If it doesn't divide, then you have to find some two prime ideals. Then you can say, okay, you have qi and qj, then you multiply, and you try to see that, okay, this is your thing. Like, I can give you example for this 2 of, okay, if m is equal to 3 mod 4. So if you take the first case, 2 is equal to 2 comma 1 plus root over m square. So if m is equal to 3 mod 4, you can see that 2 divides this thing, and then you can say that, okay, then my 2 is ramified, right? And 2 comma 1 plus root m, this thing is the prime ideal, because you just take, like, you know, for quadratic extension what is the okay, then you just quotient by this thing, and you see that, okay, it is a finite field, hence it will be a prime ideal. And your 2 is contained in, of course, 2 is contained in 2 comma 1 plus root m, and it is a prime ideal, and 2 is also ramified. So there is only one possibility, that 2 is must be 2 comma 1 plus root m whole square. So there is no other possibilities. Similarly, like the second case, if m is congruent to 1 mod 8, you first, like, now when you like, if the prime is not ramified, that's why ramification is very important. If a prime is not ramified, then you now have to do some guessing kind of thing. You have to just guess two prime factors, you have to multiply them and show that, okay, 2 is contained inside this prime ideal, the product of these two prime ideals. Like, if you actually, this is not very difficult, because for the second case, just try to see that if you have 2 comma 1 plus root m by 2 and the other factor, you multiply them and you see that 2 is inside there, 2 will be inside there. So if 2 is inside there, again the same thing, like, I have a p, I have a q, and I know p into q contains 2. So if I take the look at the factorization of 2, I know that p and q should be there. But that's it. As the degree of the extension is 2, there can't be any another prime. And p and q also has to be like, the ramification index of p and q both should be 1. So you can say that, okay, 2 is there is only one possibility for 2. For 8k plus 1, it is just 2 is equal to p into q. And for I don't know really how to show for 8k plus, like, if it is m is congruent to mod 5 mod 8, then I don't know how this 2 stays prime. That I have to check. So yeah, that's like it, more or less. Like, you first calculate the discriminant, you see whether p divides the discriminant, then you get, okay, it is ramified or not, you guess some prime ideal, and then just do it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can see that the whole proof is given in Marcus. This whole, whatever I have said, that it's given in Marcus.
Okay.
The whole thing. Proof of.
Um, yeah. Does anyone else have any question?
I have a question. Can you
Yeah.
go back one slide when you define ramification?
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
so definitely this notion of ramification is not just for the primes in Z, right? So
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
there,
Exactly.
can
Exactly.
you, so is it, so as you just, as the discussion happened, this P dividing discriminant was a very powerful thing to decide if it's
Yeah.
ramified or not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
what can you say about ramification for other number rings?
So for other number fields, you have to show, like, you have to see what happens with the norm of that. So if you have like R and say K and L, then you try to see, if you calculate the discriminant of L, you take a prime ideal in there and you try to see what happens, like if whether the norm divides it or not, the norm of P divides the discriminant of L or not, then you
So a
have like similar kind of result.
similar theorem would hold. P is ramified if and only if P divides discriminant would hold. The norm of P will divide the discriminant in that case.
Yeah, I think so there is a similar kind of result, like even if like, so norm, so I'm not sure whether the norm, if norm divides that hold or not, but if you check the norm is some prime, right? So
Yeah.
if you take that prime, like it will be some power of a prime. So if you take that power of a prime, if just that primes divide discriminant of R, I think maybe then it might be true also.
So is it a
That case, like that,
which side are you saying will be clear? If P is ramified, then P divides discriminant. Like the norm of P divides discriminant.
yeah. So it will be like the both side. It, I think, like when you take the norm of that, it is a power of prime. If that prime P divides the discriminant of this, then I think the both side happens.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So does Marcus
So, but mainly
mention this for any number?
Marcus, I think Marcus mentions this for in the exercise. I think he states some result like this in the exercises.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else have any question? Yeah. If nobody has any questions, let me. Yeah. Before ending, I just want to ask one question. So this is like
Yeah.
a food for thought. Um, so suppose you take a number ring and
Mhm.
you take the k group of the number ring. Okay.
Okay.
In
Okay.
the k group of the number ring, you can find the definition. The using the something defined by Grothendieck. You take set of all projective modules and you quotient it by the
Yeah.
relations of exact sequence. So what we know is this group is so this group is going to be Z direct sum the class group. This is something one can
Yeah.
prove. If you can find a proof of it, like I would be interested to know
Okay.
where can you find this. But more importantly, what is class group doing there? That's my question. If you can tell me later.
So I think like if you see, there is some result in Hartshorne for
Okay.
where he talks about, like, any, in general he talks about any projective schemes and things like that.
Yeah.
So there he actually says that, like, how it splits, like if you have a, so what happens that if you take, say, this the Picard group, as a Picard group, these things, like if you have the number ring, your number ring, if you take the Picard group of that, as like in how you get those, like, divisor class group from number theory, this thing, and whatever you take this class group from here, they are same. So I think in Hartshorne there is a result which actually deals with, like, you take, but the problem is, like, I know there is a result only for curves. For higher dimension, I don't think there is any result like that. So for curves, there are results like which actually tells you, like, the K group to be something like direct sum of, like, class group, like divisor class group plus something is there. So I think it's in section 7 or something of Hartshorne in chapter 2.
Thank you. Uh, if anyone, no one has any questions, let
So
we can.
I'll see about the what Abhiram has asked. I have to see, like, the whole statement. I'm not very sure whether I'm right or not. So I'll see and I'll post maybe in Discord the full statement.
Yeah,
Right.
sure. Thank you. Uh, if That's it. Let's thank the speaker. Thank you, Akash.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I'll post about more. I'll post about the upcoming talks in the following session in the Discord server.